You saw a moment ago from that update from Junior Kamala, more details emerging about the WhatsApp messages allegedly sent by the Eastern Cape Judge President, Selby Mbenenge, to a younger woman who was working as a judge's secretary in his court. She's now going to be cross-examined by the Judicial Service Commission Conduct Tribunal today after giving evidence against him. Mbekezeli Benjamin is a research and advocacy officer at Judges Matter. Mbekezeli, good morning. Obviously, there's a lot more to come, and we really should not pass judgment until we've seen both sides of this. And the judge does deny sending a picture of himself, but this still raises very serious questions about his conduct. I mean, I don't know if he should have been having personal WhatsApp communication with someone in such a weaker power position as him in the first place.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to the viewers. You're quite right. There is a serious power dynamic that is happening here and will no doubt be a factor. And there are really serious questions about whether he should have been engaging with the staff member in this way at all. But what the tribunal will really be focusing on, and which I suspect the judge's legal team will also be pushing the tribunal to focus on, is the consensual nature of all of this. Because the allegations are that he sexually harassed her. And for there to be sexual harassment, there must be conduct of a sexual nature that is unwanted. And so Judge Mbenenge will be arguing very strongly that it was actually consensual. But of course, because of the power dynamics, it will be extremely hard to assess. You're quite right that we can't really pass judgment at this stage. The evidence is still ongoing. We are only on day 3. But no, the revelations so far have really been shocking.
There's probably going to be, and I hate it when court proceedings or tribunals like this get to this point, but there'll probably be quite a lot of technical evidence about photographs or images that were, or let me use very properly here, the word allegedly, that they were allegedly sent by the judge president to the judge's secretary. I don't know if any of that matters if you consider that, from what I understand, the text messages, in other words, WhatsApp messages that were just words and not images, have actually been admitted as evidence. He admits sending them.
Yes, so that again, the legal requirements for sexual harassment include verbal, non-verbal communication, include acts, include text messages, images, videos, voice notes. All evidence is really taken into account, and one does have to look at it in a bigger picture. But the crucial thing, I think, about the images and the videos is that Judge Mbenenge has strenuously denied that he sent those videos or those images. He has consistently denied that he even sent them at all. At the Judicial Conduct Committee stage of this complaint, there was a point at which he says the deleted parts, because there's an allegation about the deleted images, he says that he never sent them at all. And I think a forensic analyst will also be called in this tribunal to try and deal with that question. But you're quite right. There is a lot at the moment that the tribunal can make a ruling on. But of course, under cross-examination, every single piece of evidence will be quite crucial.
I would imagine, and this is a hypothetical here, but if it is found that in fact he did send that image, I can't see how he could remain in his position, knowing what I know at this stage.
Look, it's hard to tell. Look, it doesn't look good. It certainly does not look good for anyone in his position. But again, he will likely argue that it was consensual. Probably was not appropriate for people who are in the positions that they were in, and certainly for someone who's married to be sending images of that nature to someone. But it is a question of, was it consensual or was it unwanted? And that is the crucial question that the tribunal must answer. Because if they found that it was unwanted, then he is likely to be guilty of gross misconduct, and that would obviously lead, or may possibly lead, to impeachment.
In a way, this hearing is important for other reasons. It's taking place in public. It's very difficult evidence to actually take place in public. How do you feel about how this has been managed so far? Transparent? Good? Very difficult for the complainant to give evidence under these circumstances, I'm sure.
Look, Stephen, it is extremely difficult. It is extremely distressing listening to the evidence. For someone who's an outsider to this, it is really, really difficult to hear the experiences that she's sharing about how she felt stripped of her dignity. She felt that she was undermined as a human being. That, I think, was a painful moment. But it was important that this be heard publicly. We know that in the legal community, sexual harassment is often spoken about, but we never ever see a complaint get to this stage. And so it is important that this be heard publicly. And in fact, some of the reflections that I've gotten over the last few days is that it is quite shocking that it is public. But one thing it has done, it has educated people that, look, you have been a victim of sexual harassment, even though you brushed it off as just casual behavior between colleagues, but you have been a victim of sexual harassment. So that in itself is important. But another important thing, Stephen, is that for a couple of years now, we have been advocating for a sexual harassment policy to be developed for the judiciary. We know that the Chief Justice has been working on it, but what this case shows is that that work needs to be sped up. It needs to be dealt with urgently. There needs to be a policy in place and a proper system in place to deal with these complaints, because they are not run-of-the-mill misconduct complaints that should be dealt in the mainstream system.
There's another important aspect to all of this, which it would seem to suggest that the process of disciplining judges and holding judges to account when they do break the law, misbehave, whatever it is, seems to be gathering a little bit of momentum. And let me just make the point that, John Hlophe's first career, that took a very long time for that process to end. The same for then Judge Nkolo Motata. Mr. Motata now, of course, he's no longer a judge. And then we also saw earlier this week a former Judge Makubela, still a judge, I suppose, in some ways, and action finally being taken against her for her role in PRASA and for also having a paid job while also technically being a judge. And this case now, is this a suggestion perhaps the process of holding judges accountable, even though it can still take a long time, is beginning to happen a bit more quickly?
Yes, certainly, Stephen. The process itself is gaining momentum. We are seeing the wheels of justice move a bit faster than in the past. However, we still are concerned that it is far too slow. This complaint involving Judge Mbenenge has taken 2 years to get to this point. The one you mentioned, Judge Makubele, it took 6 years for it to get to a tribunal finding. And yes, maybe the complaint against Judge Hlophe was extreme in terms of taking 16 years, but we're still not really better. And one of the problems of why these complaints are so slow has to do with the law that governs these complaints. The actual legislation is just, the process itself is poorly designed. It is far too complex without a need for all this complexity. But the other difficulty is that it's not capacitated enough. For example, this Mbenenge complaint, from the point at which it was filed in January of 2023, there was really no movement until July of 2023. So in 6 months, what was happening? Those are the systemic issues with this process, and which we as Judges Matter have been saying they should be resolved quite urgently, because the judiciary's reputation is on the line.
Mbekezeli Benjamin, thank you. Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter. Really do appreciate it. More news to come. Also, we'll have a look at